All right, so we're just going to jump right in. I asked Claude to brag about you, and in just 3 sentences, because there's a lot that they could say. And this is what I got. Jayeeta Putatunda is an award-winning AI powerhouse who
Okay.
won the AI 100 Award in Generative AI. She was named one of the top 25 visionary women in fintech AI and was
Okay.
handpicked as one of the only 33 advisors worldwide for NVIDIA's Enterprise Platform Advisor program. She now dedicates a huge part of her time mentoring the next generation through the United Nations Foundation and the New York City chapter of Women in AI. If you are a young person trying to figure out where you fit in this AI-driven world, she is exactly who you need to hear from. Is that correct?
That's a lot of good brag. I think I have to also now use Claude to brag about myself, and I'm feeling not too good about myself.
It's
That's a
great for the
great
ego.
idea.
It's great
Yeah,
for the ego, especially if
yeah.
you're feeding the algorithm what it
I know,
needs. So
right?
obviously you're
Yeah,
doing good work out here in the world
yeah.
because it's pretty on point. Um, I think that this is the perfect place to start with this podcast
Mhm.
because you are not just a leader in this space, you are a woman in this space, and you have a seat at the table.
Mhm.
You have an inside look at all of the things that we are like waiting for answers on. Like
Mhm.
people are asking how this impacts the environment. People are asking like what does AI for good even mean? There's just
Mhm.
so many questions and I know you have a lot of answers and we only have about 30 minutes. So,
Okay.
can you explain
Mhm.
generative AI to someone who has never heard the term
Mhm.
and has a limited understanding of the tech world?
Absolutely. I think the meaning is in the word itself, generative. So, kind of AI models that really can generate text. And this is, I feel, a newer version of the kind of technology that has already been available to us to use for like quite some time. There are initial machine learning models, neural networks. Everything was more for application, nothing for generation, and that's why I think it has become such mainstream and everybody's life is getting impacted in a way that now they see the like anybody can just open up ChatGPT. Like I can give you an example. My father, who is in 70s, just opens up ChatGPTs, and when he tries to explain like some legal term or he writes legal books. So if he wants to simplify it, he'll just go to ChatGPT and say, "Explain this topic to me like I'm 5." This kind of technology was not there before. This
Yeah.
is more empowering in a way that you can get as much information synthesized in a way that we did not have access to before.
Mhm.
So it's more on the generation side versus before it was more technical applications, like really creating models very specific to purposes. And that's why ChatGPT became so mainstream and everybody understands at least on a base level of what that technology can do.
Yeah. The technology is obviously very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my first thought in knowing that your father is using this, that like you're obviously using it, and AI is something that we're often telling people you need to learn it now or you'll get left behind.
Yeah.
But how accurate is AI? Like, do you feel confident in the answers that it's providing?
Yeah, so that's a very, tricky question. And I think the answer to that is yes or no. It depends on how you really set it up. Like in enterprise or in like industry, we always see that there is a huge requirement that you do not take the AI's output at face value. And it has already always been like that, even without like the generative AI models, the pre-gen AI models. When you build a model, you always have a test cycle where you iteratively test with some, like we call it, ground truth, which means the actual truth data that you have from humans or past occurrences, and you test on it and see that is it giving you the same kind of output. So it's kind of like refining the model's value output with that previous actual factual data. The same for generative AI as well. It got a little harder to evaluate it because now it's a lot of text. You really need to know to like look into that particular, is the data specific number exact. You have to go through the site link, read through it, and make sure that it's not like completely inaccurate or like in the term it's called hallucinating some of the numbers up. So if you set your process or context up that you give the AI that here are 5 documents that you have access to, and whatever questions I'm going to follow up ask, only base your answers based on that. These are like basic initial, I would say, system guidances you would give to your AI. And then hopefully you will see, as you start navigating, you'll create more situations where you give it direction that don't do this, don't do that, and you kind of customize and make it sound like, or like get feedback or get answers as you would like it to. But it's a process. I don't think just giving one example or one prompt you would get the best answer as you would expect.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is it's about collaboration
Mm-hmm.
and you have to check the
Mm-hmm.
work.
Always, like there's no way you can use just the output as is. And if I can cite an example, I think if you have heard this concept of human centered AI, it's getting very much push in the industry. And what that means is just that you are a human, you have access to a machine which is like an AI. How can you make the machine work as best as possible for you, for the task you are doing? So keeping the human in the middle. There's also this terminology called human in the loop. What does it mean? It means that whenever the AI has outputted something, you as a human expert is reviewing everything, making sure it follows all the direction, the requirements, the template, or whatever you have given it, and then accept the final output and just not copy paste out of whatever your AI assistant and give it back to where you submit. So I think the onus or the responsibility still lies with the human, and we are not at a stage where we completely, uh, I would say, blindly trust AI outputs at all. Not
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm. Okay. Um with that being said, and obviously, you guys are continuing to build better, probably on a daily basis
Mhm.
because things are changing so fast.
Yeah,
But
super
from
fast.
personal perspective, and I don't know if there's a biased opinion because you do work in this space,
Mhm.
do you think the world needs AI?
Yeah, it's a it's a big question, right? I do not know if I have the right answer, but I can only give you my perspective. I have seen both sides of it. I have seen use cases, especially in healthcare. If you look at what some of the new drug discovery processes, it takes years to really set up some clinical trials, advancements of like identifying proteins. I don't even like know those detailed steps that needs to happen when you are like really trying to find a cure for a disease. AI has really augmented some of these processes like super fast because it can process a lot of these data. It can like churn and synthesize a lot of these data much faster. And the key areas where we are also seeing the other side of the, like I would say, the flip side of the coin is that too much usage in use cases that don't really need it. Like if you have a master's in English, why are you using AI to like rewrite the email to make it sound nice, make it sound polite? I mean, like that's why I say that human centered concept needs to be applied not only for industries or organizations, but for like a personal human level usage as well. So trust your I would say skill, and trust your judgment where you don't really need AI, and just don't be like get like too much dependent on the technology, and then use your judgment the right way.
Yes. Use your brain is what I'm
Use your
hearing.
brain.
Collaborate
Yeah,
is what I'm
collaborate.
hearing.
Yeah, get
It
to the
takes more
get to
than
the
just the machine to get it done.
yes,
So,
absolutely. It needs your intellect to like really guide the machine to what you would then finally use as an output, and not
yes.
just saying that, oh, give me a research 5 top articles and then use that as is. Doesn't really help in any way.
Okay. I hope all of our students heard that and take it into
Critical thinking.
consideration.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on to facts we
What?
know.
Mhm.
So
Bro, what are you talking about,
there
man?
has already been a 13% decline in employment for workers aged 22 to 25
Mhm.
in AI exposed jobs since late 2022.
Mhm.
A lot of the young people we work with are worried about job replacement, or
Mhm.
they're worried about, how they'll find their place in a world
Yep.
where they're not even sure what they want to do, but
Yep.
they don't want to spend the time investing in a career where there might not be opportunity.
Yeah.
So, when you imagine the type of jobs that AI can replace, what does
Mhm.
that look like? What industry do you think AI is going to kind of take over, or will it take over?
Yeah. I mean, if you see the latest trends, sure, like the job industry is definitely, I would say, changing. And then I think every organization, no one, if they say that they have a concrete answer to this, know that they are lying, because no one really knows how the process or what kind of effects we're going to see. But I have seen, again, two sides of that coin. The positive side, I have seen folks building their companies when they're like just 17 and 18 because they have some idea, but now they don't need to hire like $1 million like software developer teams, like 5-6 teams to really come up and build that code for themselves. I'm sure all of the listeners have heard about this term called vibe coding. What does
Mm-hmm.
that mean? You're just vibing with the software tool. Your vibing means you're giving it a direction, you're giving it a purpose, that what are you trying to build, what are some of the features of the product. If it's a software product, it can be like anything. And you are like really getting to that MVP or that minimum viable product so much faster. And I have seen like really such special use cases. I am also part of this group where we get to see a lot of pre-seed founders coming and pitching to raise funds, and all of those ideas are really great ideas, and they're coming from first time founders. That means that they are not entrepreneurs by any chance, but they had that idea, and now that barrier to entry is like completely gone, so you can build whatever you want. So the positive part of that, and I keep saying that to everybody I speak to, is always now see that what skills do you have that AI doesn't have yet. That is your critical thinking, that is your power of imagination, that is your power of knowing what problem in the society you are trying to solve, and then build for that using AI. So don't try to build it all by yourself, because that will take you longer time, longer amount of money, and you can just start building. There are folks keep giving like credits to like start using these coding tools where you can just spin up an instance and then put it up in production and just share with folks, get feedback, and I think you get a lot of visibility just by doing. So I really understand that this is not like a, I would say, how we got into that enterprise, that, oh, you study this, you do your MBA, you get into a company, they will train you, and then you keep working there. I think that cycle has changed a lot. Now it's more learning by doing yourself, and then showing it to the world what you have done, and then getting like getting your foot into the door to like really navigate where you want to specialize in. So it's a little different, but I still feel very positive about it. I feel like if I could, I would build like a lot of I have a lot of ideas, but now the chance of me building that is much higher.
Hearing this makes me think of this in a more optimistic way,
Hmm.
because it sounds like if you have a big idea or even a small idea,
Yeah,
you could potentially build a career around that.
yeah,
You might not have the resources or the finances, but
yeah.
now it's kind of evening the playing field for
Absolutely.
everyone.
Absolutely. There's this company called Y Combinator, there's South Park Commons. All of them kind of really encourage that if you're a builder, even if you're not a graduate or like you're just in the school, you still can submit applications to their speedrun. It's happening in July this year, the first speedrun, if I'm not mistaken. But it just kind of gets you into that door where everybody's a builder. They have so much idea. You hear from mentors, you hear from entrepreneurs, and kind of opens up your entire perspective of what you can do for society or what you can build for.
I
Yeah.
love that. Okay. So this morning, I was reading your Substack while I was having my dirty chai, and
Sorry.
I read something that really stood out to me. You said the people getting compounding returns from AI are not the ones with the most expensive subscriptions.
Hmm.
They are the ones who went deeper and understood that what looks like one tool is actually 7 tools
Hmm.
layered on top of each other,
Hmm.
each unlocking the previous one.
Hmm.
So I'm so happy that you're highlighting this, because our young people often think if they cannot afford the costly subscriptions,
Hmm.
that they're not going to benefit from what AI is feeding them.
Hmm.
But what I'm reading here
Hmm.
is actually the opposite.
Hmm.
So tell me, as a complete beginner,
Hmm.
how do I reach those deeper layers
Yeah.
on no subscription at all?
Yeah. I mean, two ways. Like, first, when you're starting out, let's take an example of ChatGPT. Like, ChatGPT has a free tier where you can use initially, when you keep asking like a couple of questions and you use the most latest models, you run out of tokens much faster. So you have to figure out what are the initial, like if you're asking, hey, tell me about like what happened, just give you an example, like in the last 5 days, what happened in tech. That doesn't need the latest model. So figuring out like for that specific just web search query, maybe you could have done that in Google. Now Google also has an AI overview that comes in. Maybe you find your sources and then put it in the chat. Second, really creating like a personalized prompt that says that when you are generating, don't be too verbose, identify or like write down the answer in 5 bullets. Be concise, give me direct examples, don't cite any additional quotes inside, because all these LLM models, if you ask it one line question, it tends to be too verbose and gives you like a long paragraph of text, and each text it's generating is eating up your token from your free tire. So really like figuring out how to kind of manage the input output, and then how can you set it up with some of the instruction that really suits you, like I was saying, giving it more context. There's like again this technical term called context engineering. What does that mean? Like context piece everything about you. So who are you? Maybe like and in ChatGPT you can go to settings, and they have like a settings area where you can give it how the tone and the voice of the output should look like. And most of the time for me it's just that always respond with like bullets in one sentence, and only explain when I ask it for additional explain, so that the initial rounds doesn't eat up that much of my token. So again, that's why I'm saying the playing around with some of these technology, really you see what's working for you, what's not working for you, and then you find out like a workaround. There's always so many workarounds. Like I see every time you Google just that 30 prompts to make your AI sound more like you. There's so many of these. Just test out a little bit. So it's like a iterative learning process. And I think there's no other easy way to learn through it, but step by step process. Yeah.
Okay. Give us a peek behind the curtain.
Mhm.
So you work with tons of big tech companies.
Mhm.
Are you the only person in the room that looks like you? Are there other women in the room? And if not, do you think that's going to change?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I think another positive effect of generative AI is that, like I said, the barrier to entry has really gone down. So I have now see a lot more engagement from even folks who were, say, not in tech, maybe say they were in UI UX or like say product, but all those roles are kind of now merging.
And
Because
what is UI UX?
sorry about that. So like user interface and user experience. Like say
Okay.
if you're building a website or you're building any kind of product, you would need like how the user's journey would look like. So there were specified or specific fields. They are still there, but I'm saying all of those path of very different technical looking roles are now kind of like merging. And of course there's like a lot of interest now because people see the value. They think that I know a friend who's an English major, but who's now trying to understand how she can transfer her skills to a different adjacent role, like say a product go to market. That means, what does that mean? What does a product go to market person does? Talks about like the product strategy, how to reach more consumers, how to like tell a story, how to like really engage the community or like their seller base with the product. And having an English major has completely like helped her, because now she knows how to kind of write those kind of stories. So the goal here is, how do you use AI to really benefit and get yourself to a much higher level of what you are doing and get better at it, and maybe able to do much more nuanced work that would have taken you much longer to learn.
Mm-hmm. With all the advances happening in tech so quickly, that obviously means there's new jobs, there's new opportunities.
Yep.
So for every person who is watching this right now that is considering a job in tech, do they need to go the traditional route of going to college and studying a specific thing to have a seat at the table in AI? And if they don't, do they need to be self-taught? How do they get involved? And then like, what are the hot jobs right now?
I think the first question, I think even when I was like trying to figure out what career path I would go, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna just do whatever and then figure out. But I think even then, having like a lineage of a education background gives a lot of credibility even now, and it also gets you into those rooms that you wouldn't be ideally be able to get in if you are not in that network, right? So it'll get you like your seniors, your peers, like the alumni network. So it gives you a lot of good kind of, I would say, network for you to start and begin with. The other point that you mentioned is that how to like really, can I learn myself? You can learn yourself. Like I think when I did my master's, we were still coding in R, and Python was just coming up, which is like just a coding language. And I still remember I took my classes, I completed courses, and I came back and I took so many online courses just to learn how to convert, if I'm coding in R, how can I convert those coding scripts to Python script? Nobody asked me to do it, but I knew that when I was researching about jobs, there were like people talking about you should know how to learn in Python. So if I am applying for it, I should show that I know how to write both in R and Python. So I think in every stage of the technology evolution, you have to be like a self-starter. Like, I don't think any college degree would give you absolutely everything, but it kind of gives you some structure, some pathways that you can take and think through, and your peers that you can brainstorm with. And then a lot of it is like on you. And I think if you just Google, there are like tons of free resources in YouTube. I see some great engineering blogs, technical blogs about how LLMs work, how the architecture, infrastructure inside LLM works, if you want to go down that technical route.
Yeah.
And there's like nothing stopping you from learning like endlessly. My mother actually jokes that I study much more now than I ever did in my undergrad and my grad studies. And she's like, why are you studying so much? You're already working. It's like, if you're not studying and upskilling every day, what are you doing?
Right. And
Yeah.
things are constantly changing.
Yeah.
What are 3 roles in
Mhm.
tech that young people could consider right now?
Any kind of data based roles is still in much demand. Like, I know everybody says that, oh, now with LLMs you can do a data analysis, but if you come to the enterprise side, you would see that data is much more complex. It's not that easy to use just an LLM to like simplify everything. So there's a lot of needs to still for folks to still be like actually understand how to wrangle the data, what kind of, how can you like really process data through like large chunks of analysis that you are doing. There's also a lot of demand I see on the product side. Like, you're designing a product, or if you have like a more creative part where you know what the market is looking for, and you can kind of translate that back into like a technical spec or like a technical process, that's also much in demand. There was this meme that I think some of these big tech companies were like hiring for product managers, that and the salary ranges were like never seen before. Why? Because now that the tech is there, the engineering is already there, you need visionary thinkers or
Yeah.
creative thinkers to come and help guide that engineering infrastructure to build something really revolutionary that no coding chatbot can really build by themselves. So yeah, maybe that. Yeah, and overall engineering, I think it'll still be there. Like, it's
Mhm.
I know every cycle we keep hearing that software engineering is dead, data scientists are roles are dead, but I think it's just getting different naming conventions across, and the applicability, if you're really good at it, and if you have some, like, I would say, side projects, or that's why pet projects to show, I think that's how you kind of really impress your hiring managers. There's no other way, unfortunately, at this point. So start reading, start building something, have something as a side hustle to kind of really show that you understand the tech and get in.
Okay. You piqued my interest.
Mhm.
You mentioned salaries, but we didn't get a range. So the average product manager that's working in New York is making how much?
Yeah, it depends on like your industry experiences, but I think the initial bands are, it's pretty credible. And I think if I did my research right last time, you would say at least 150K up for sure. If you are getting in like some technology product companies. If it's like more of a service company, maybe the differences are there. But yeah, I think you can look up companies like Glassdoors or Levels.fyi. They have like pretty nice ranges that you can see from each work experience level. What are some of the expected ranges across New York City,
Mhm.
or even across like United States?
What is the higher side of that?
The market is like really moving in a way that it's unprecedented, like we have not seen. If you see some of the higher ranges of seasoned product managers, it goes 500K plus. If you really have that lineage that you can show, like strong educational background and worked with big tech, did a lot of stuff, I think, yeah, you can clearly demand a lot of that.
Good to know all the different ways that you can have
Mhm.
a seat at the table. Let's say the parents out there that are
Mhm.
concerned, they're raising teenagers currently,
Yeah.
or they're seeing young adults that are relying too heavily on
Mhm.
AI. Are companies considering like the long-term critical thinking impacts for young people?
Mhm.
Or, do you think they're just developing these AI models and
Mhm.
gonna get around to that when they get pressured to do something?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I don't fully know who that responsibility should really honestly be with. Like, to give you an example, every time, like, if a company is building a product, or like any kind of service product, like, do you
Social
really
media, for
social media?
example.
Do you really their initial idea would be to really get to everybody and then make everybody use it. then there will come studies about like, oh, how it's impacting, and then there will be some rollbacks. So it has always been that same cycle that we have seen in product and especially in social media. But I think now people are much more aware. Like, I know for myself, like I have a toddler now. When I like really see how AI or what kind of, I would say, information is out there, I would be more, I would say, careful when I am exposing my child to those kind of like content. Do I want to expose? Having like more stricter boundaries around, like, say, screen time and content type, and then choosing the right kind of context. So I think it's a very tricky area where if I'm a parent, my goal would be the wellness or the well-being of my child, and then I will try to do more research or like more deep dive into like what kind of content is safe, what are some of the areas that I completely would like either lock out or like, put some kind of like encryption so that they cannot get into, or like even if they're using my phone, they cannot get into some of those apps. So I think it's a little bit of more conscious effort, at least for now, from overall society or like parents as a whole, to really help our kids direct themselves the right way. But
Yeah.
again, it's a very changing landscape, and we'll see how it rolls out. Honestly, I don't think I have the right answer.
Yeah. I will say, and to put our listeners at ease,
Hmm.
you are doing a lot of advocacy work in this space. And I want people to understand, or at least feel good knowing that there is someone that is in the room that
Yep.
is using their voice to make sure that we're holding these companies accountable and that they're building better. Who would you say that you are currently advocating for the most? And
Hmm.
who needs like to be advocated for the most currently in the work that you're doing?
My current, I would say, biggest area of work is with Women in AI, which is a nonprofit that I very closely work with, and the goal is entirely that how can we help uh, women in the field who have historically, as has been shown, shied away from STEM or like tech based jobs, thinking that maybe they're not good enough. But that's not the actual scenario. Studies, a lot of studies have been done, and it was found that most of the time they didn't have anybody to kind of look up to,
Mm-hmm.
to see that, oh, I can also be that. Either those were not advertised around them, or they didn't have anybody in their near network. So I think the if you see some of the initiatives that we run through Women in AI, it's just to kind of go and show them that here, this is the tech. It's not rocket science. You can learn about AI. You can learn about even rocket science. I think if you are training for that, it shouldn't be so hard. But I'm not a rocket scientist. But yeah, to kind of really break that, I would say that the feeling of fear that this is completely alien and I don't understand anything of it. And we
Mm-hmm.
have seen a lot of success where we have seen multiple folks, even who are transitioning from different fields or like coming back after like a career gap, or like new high school students who didn't even know that, oh, I can be a financial trader. Of course you can be a financial trader. Like, you just need to know which path of specialization you need to get to, and what kind of certifications you need, and which kind of networking events you have to go to really get some of those mentorship aligned with your interests. So I think that kind of really opens up a lot of door. And yeah, I've been doing similar kind of work for almost like 8-9 years now. It's been a long time, but we've come a long way. We're seeing much more participation from across the board, which is a pretty good, nice sign.
Awesome. All right, we're going to jump into a quick
Mm-hmm.
segment called No Hesitation. I am going to just say something. You are going to respond. First thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
What country is leading in AI?
I think United States for now.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll take that. What is one skill a young person could learn this weekend that
Mhm.
would make them more hireable in tech?
How to challenge the output of AI. So basically, how to evaluate and how to use your human critical thought to really refine the output, so that you know how to not just use that, like they call the AI slop, but make it like really a actual output that surpasses the benchmarks. Yeah.
Mhm.
So critical thinking. Yeah.
What is one myth about AI?
That it has reached AGI levels. What is so they're talking about how AI is becoming general intelligence. That means it can do anything that a human does. I don't think we are anywhere near. LLMs are still a very language based model, so language trained model, and they are giving you the output just by predicting that next word. That's what is and the underlying tech. It has read the entire internet, and it's just refining and giving you the next possible output. So I don't think we should be scared that the AI is becoming AGI. It's not there yet.
My last no hesitation is probably my most important question, and it is, what comes after AI?
A lot of application. So if you hear the word applied AI, it's getting around a lot these days. If you see the difference between how West Coast, or at least because West Coast, because all the apply frontier labs are based out of there, how they think about AI is very different. They're always chasing that next model benchmark. But if you, and
Is
I'm
that like
talking about
Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley,
Okay.
yes. And I am in East Coast, so I'm just giving an example of East Coast. If you see East Coast, it has all of these banking and financial and a lot of highly governed institutions. How are they thinking about AI? They are still thinking about how to apply it very responsibly, strategically, and safely. So that's the concept of, now that the AI models are here, it's getting like really good. How do we apply it safely with all the guardrails, with all the evaluations? And that's why I was saying in the earlier question, how do you critique the output, make sure it's right, and how do you create that cycle of evaluation so that it's always right, or at least for the use cases that you're solving for. So there's a huge gap between how AI is enforced in Silicon Valley versus everywhere else, where industries are much more cautious about how they apply AI in their day-to-day product, services, everything.
Yeah. Okay. Let's close with the biggest concern for the young people that we serve at Precious Dreams, and that is our environment. Is it something that concerns you currently? What we're seeing, some of the negative impacts of the data centers that are being built?
Yep.
And are you hearing any conversation about how to reverse some of the results that we're seeing? And are people starting to build or consider building differently so that, we don't have a water shortage, or, we're not causing pollution globally?
Yeah. I think these are definitely genuine concerns. And I think, like, as we were discussing earlier, every time there's a new product evolution, the initial urge is to get that product to as best as possible. We then take a step back and see, hey, what do we need to fix in our surroundings? I think there's like a tons of organizations who are doing great work, like coming up with strategies. Like one of the key researchers in the field, I know she's doing great work to really identify uh, how can we clearly showcase what one prompt from you, how much of an energy impact it's actually occurring for the entire system, right? So that would make not only the builders or the tech companies, but also users like us more aware, that just don't ask questions to randomly ask, like just don't say, oh, summarize my this email. That's not a good use of AI. Rewrite this email for me. Again, not a good use of AI. You understand language, you can work some of those up. So really creating or having that technology in a way where you can use it to get to, or do your job or expand your understanding of the world much more, but keeping in mind that how much resources are you consuming. So those I would say, so that doesn't feel like, I would say, a black box, and you really can calculate, same as electricity, like how much is your AC consuming, like how much of watt power, and how much you're paying for it. So that transparency helps us reduce our energy bill costs, right? Like I would say, oh, I've been putting out the AC whole day, maybe I'll just shut it down. It's the same concept. So I don't think that technology is there yet to really classify or give us those exact numbers, but folks are really like doing a lot of research trying to figure out how to like measure it with that granularity, which I feel would really help us as a whole for society to come up with better solutions.
Yeah. So it sounds like, aside from holding the tech companies accountable, we also have to consider how we are impacting the environment by using it. But what I'm also hearing is vibe code, but don't vibe all day.
Don't
vibe
vibe all day.
responsibly.
Vibe responsibly. And
Okay.
like clarify your thought before you start prompting. I have seen people like ask random prompts and they'll keep prompting. I wouldn't say that's the best way to use it.
Yeah.
Think about a solution, what you want to build, what are the features, brainstorm with a friend, get some feedback, have like maybe use the AI to modify that query or prompt a little bit more strong, and then just start from there. So do your research, do your background study, and then get to it.
All right. Well, it's on us to keep learning. Jayeeta, thank you so much for being here with us today. Adulting is hard, but it doesn't have to be with the right assist. If you like this episode, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube. We're dropping a lot of gems here. If there's anyone that you know that could benefit from the podcast, share that as well. Thanks.